We've gotten a ton of Honkai Star Rail teasers and trailers over the past few weeks in the lead up to the game's big 3.0 patch, and my brain is in overdrive. Elysia, Kevin, Stellarons, Elysia, Aeons, Kevin, March 7th, Elysia, Finality, Deliverance, Kevin, Elysia. Whew. My head has been non-stop chaos with every snippet shared by Hoyoverse, and after the 3.0 dev livestream, my head is starting to clear as it closes in on what I think is about to go down during our journey to Amphoreous. But before I get to my out there theories and speculations, let's take a minute to talk in greater detail about Elysia and Kevin from Honkai Impact 3rd, and of course timestamps are linked below if you want to skip straight to my tinfoil hat ideas. Now, I did briefly touch on the story of the Flame Chasers in my Golden Epic trailer speculation video, so check that out if you haven't already, because I will definitely be mentioning some of the same ideas here. But for this video, let's take a quick look into who Elysia and Kevin are to help us better understand the potential intentions of their counterparts in Star Rail. So this is your spoiler warning for the events that take place in Honkai Impact 3rd. Elysia was simply a girl who loved humanity. And it was this very love which led her to join an organization called the Moths, who were attempting to combat the threat posed by Hershers and the Honkai that corrupted them. It was with the Moths that she underwent something called mantis surgery, which fused her body with that of an alien-like beast called a Honkai beast to grant her powerful abilities. Many mantis super soldiers were created this way, but nearly all of them perished at the hands of a Hersher of Binding, alongside 70% of humanity. With only 13 mantis soldiers left alive, Elysia created an unsanctioned group called the Flame Chasers to unite the surviving mantises against the remaining Honkai threats. As well as fighting in the previous era, the purpose of this group was to store the memories and feelings of the Flame Chasers in a space known as the Elysian Realm to help assist humanity in the future. After the rise of the 12th Hersher and the death of one of the remaining Mantis soldiers, Elysia decided it was time to reveal her true identity as the 13th Hersher of the previous era. Unlike the other Hershers that followed the will of the Honkai, Elysia was simply born a Hersher and spent her life trying to help humanity. She then sacrificed herself to offer the Hershers of the current era a chance to retain their sanity, so that they too could fight for, not against humanity. Meanwhile, in the current era, the simulation of Elysia left behind in the Elysian Realm offers guidance to those sent there within the World Serpent organization, which is led by Kevin. And as fabulous as that segue into Kevin's backstory would be, there are a couple of things about Elysia's role in the current era that feel important to mention here. Elysia's sim meets a woman named Raiden May in the current era, a Hersher who does in fact fight for humanity. Elysia and May spend a lot of time together, with Elysia sharing more about herself and her friends within the Flame Chasers. She also introduces May to a being called Elf Elysia, a creature made to look like Elysia who acts as the guardian of a typewriter which can hold and reveal memories. During May's time with Elysia, the Hersher of Corruption appears within the Elysian Realm and deletes the data for the Flame Chasers housed within the realm, starting with Elysia's simulation. To defeat the Hersher of Corruption, May realizes that she needs to bring Elysia back, and to do that, she needs to recreate her memories, a plan which succeeds. Bringing Elysia back alongside her Flame Chaser companions to defeat the Hersher of Corruption within the current era. And with that, May's journey continues onwards to defeat the authority of Finality. And with that little note about recreating memories and the Finality out of the way, let's move on to Kevin. Kevin was a man who never wanted to be a hero. During the previous era, he spent his time happily with his best friend Sue and his love, Dr. May. And no, she is not related to the May we were just talking about. Kevin held no aspirations, so instead took on the hopes and dreams of his closest friends as his own. Because of this, he subsequently joined the Moths, where he offered to be the first test case of the Mantis project, which was headed up by Dr. May. The surgery was a success, making Kevin an almost unstoppable soldier against the Honkai, but at the cost of ever being able to hold his beloved again due to a major side effect from the procedure, which caused his body's temperature to drop to a level that would be lethal to others. Given his power as a mantis, Kevin survives the fight against the Hersher of Binding and becomes a part of the Flame Chasers, and is nominated as their leader by Elysia. His codename within the organization was Deliverance. As the battle against the Honkai continues and the final Hersher approaches, the Flame Chasers know that they cannot defeat the Honkai in their era, and instead shift their focus to Project Save, 4 unique contingency plans designed to bring hope to the world that will come in the wake of the Honkai's destruction. After landing a sizable hit to the Hersher of Finality in the previous era's final days, Kevin among others enter cryopods to lie in wait until what remains of the Earth can be purified of the Finality's Honkai corruption. After 50,000 years, Kevin emerges from his sleep to help a new civilization face the Honkai threat. I will skip some unnecessary details here and just say that in the current era, Kevin becomes the leader of an organization called World Serpent, a group which possesses lots of information and technology from the previous era, including the still intact Elysian realm. The World Serpent's purpose is to enact Project Stigma, the last remaining hope for humanity from Project Save, one that would see about 99.99% of humanity die and become merged into a singular spiritual Adam, while those remaining become stigmata, or enhanced life forms. To ensure humanity's survival against the Honkai at all costs, Kevin wields the authority of Finality to defend Project Stigma to the very end, but is ultimately defeated by the heroes of the current era after a spectacular boss fight. His defeat sees the hero Kiana assume the mantle of the Hersher of Finality by taking on the burden of the Honkai and containing it on the moon so that humanity on Earth may continue to thrive and rebuild. So in an incredibly condensed and simplistic way, those are the things worth knowing about both Elysia and Kevin in the lead up to Amphoreous. During the 3.0 livestream, the dev team did make it abundantly clear that the characters in Star Rail might share some similarities with the beloved Honkai Impact 3rd cast, and that you don't need to know anything about Impact 3rd to enjoy the upcoming saga of Amphoreous. Now, I completely agree that it will be a story that absolutely stands on its own merits, but it's hard not to start making speculations based on some of the language and visuals being used throughout the promotion for 3.0. So let's take a look at what the past storylines can tell us about the future for Honkai Star Rail. So in both the Golden Epic and Ancient Hymn trailers, our Kevin variant named Phainon is depicted alongside 2 very specific words: Nameless and Deliverance. The Nameless is a term typically reserved for the Astral Express crew and those that walk the path of the Trailblaze in Honkai Star Rail, so it really stands out to me here considering it was used in both trailers. Plus, his reveal image bears the quote, "The hero remains nameless and engraves marks of eternity." I genuinely don't know what to make of this Nameless thread for now. We know almost nothing about this man in the context of Star Rail, so we have very little to use here to help pinpoint any connection to the Trailblaze, so for now, I will just have to let it remain a loose end. It just feels too specific a term to use about Phainon and not mention it. As for the use of the word Deliverance, it is a very clear link back to good old Kevin. The term Deliverance not only references his codename within the Flame Chasers, but it also represents his desire to free, rescue, or, in other words, deliver the world from evil. In Impact 3rd, Kevin's ascension as an antagonistic final boss comes about after the defeat of the 12 Hershers of the current era. And there are 12 core flames that must be obtained by defeating Titans and returning those to the world's origin called the Vortex of Genesis. In the imagery Hoyoverse has shown of this place, we have seen Phainon at its center, surrounded by the ignited core flames that have been delivered to it in the Nameless Faces trailer. My suspicion here is that the Vortex of Genesis will mark the place of our final battle on Amphoreous against an ascended godlike version of Phainon, who will act using the authority of Finality. Now hear me out. Remember when we talked about Kevin using the authority of Finality to defeat the Honkai at any cost? My guess is that by acquiring all of the core flames, Phainon will attempt the same fate. One final and desperate fight using the power of Finality to do what he believes is best to protect the humanity of his world. The means to get there will be different from Impact Third, of course, but I can't see a world in which this story ends without fighting some big bad version of Phainon. The reason I really believe in this theory is because of some of the language used in the trailers. Now first up, in the Golden Epic trailer, Aeon says that when the titans of old have all fallen, and the nameless new king ascends the throne alongside countless heroes to embark on the grand mission of deliverance. The literal interpretation of this makes sense within the theory, particularly if we relate the idea of the throne to the one Kevin sits on in Impact Third's final chapters, which is described as a throne forged by the sacrifice of the ages, and that was also just a manifestation of the usurper's divinity. On top of all of that, in the Ancient Hymn trailer, the narrator once again says that the Nameless Deliverer will inherit the gods' core flames and reform this broken world, just like the world bearer, Kefale. Here is where my tinfoil hat really comes out. Kefale in Star Rail so far has been described as a titan of creation, who bears the core flame of world-bearing, and was entrusted with the burden of carrying life. His body now lies dormant, watching over the city of Okama to leave a glimmer of light for humanity. Now, if we look at the Greek and biblical origins of the word Kefale, it literally translates to mean the head, but is metaphorically used to reference leadership or authority over something. With that in mind, what if the Kefale of Star Rail currently holds authority over the very Finality, which could bring ruin to Amphoreous, and is acting in a similar capacity to Kiana as the Hersher of Finality, currently residing on the moon? Except this time, Phainon is inheriting the power of Finality and the Honkai to instead reform the world anew, which has always been the purpose Finality has served in Impact Third. I know my idea seems out there even to me, but just what if? While we are still on the subject of Finality and Titans, it's important to remember that the devs confirmed in the livestream that Aeons don't exist to the people of Amphoreous, which means to them, things we know as Stellarons could very likely have a different name to them, which will lead to a lot of fun Easter eggs and theories throughout the patch. But anyways, let's move on now to talk about our lovely lady Cyrene. Cyrene is our Elysia variant, and her role in all of this is still incredibly mysterious, but it all seems to be pointing back to the idea of memories. Amphoreous is a land which can only be seen through the light of the mirrors from the Garden of Recollection, a Star Rail faction who search the cosmos to find and preserve precious memories. This greatly suggests that our visit on world to Amphoreous is set in the past, which really makes me think this is a previous era simulation versus current era hero situation. In the 3.0 livestream, it was confirmed that while the Trailblazer will explore Amphoreous from within, a secondary Astral Express team will be uncovering the world's secrets from an external perspective. And so my theory is that the Trailblazer is not acting in the story recording new memories, but is rather observing and recording the saga of Amphoreous to help find old memories. That's why they receive the gaze of the Aeon Fuli very early on in the journey, who bestows them with a quill as their weapon. In addition to the quill, the Trailblazer gets a new companion named Mem as part of their gift. Now, remember when I mentioned Elf Elysia before? The reason I did that is because I can't help but wonder if Mem's purpose is similar. A way to help record and resurface memories of others, except instead of using a typewriter, their medium is pen and paper, hence the quill and book in the reveal art. And look, I don't know what purpose this serves yet, but I do think the reason we are collecting memories in the first place is to help revive Cyrene in some way. Remember how we talked about Elysia's data being deleted in the Elysian realm, but she was able to be brought back through memories of her life? Yeah. Well, I think this entire story arc is that. Because in the Nameless Faces trailer, notice how the world around the Trailblazer is tearing apart, bearing a striking resemblance to the Because of You cutscene. Well, that moment in the trailer ends with Cyrene breaking through and hugging the Trailblazer. The only other time we see her in the Nameless Faces trailer is with her tears manifesting into some form of golden bubble. If you look closely, you can see her hair is fragmenting as well, suggesting that she is dematerializing from the world, which does make me wonder if the entire world of Amphoreous is Cyrene's memory bubble to protect the story of her people and give hope that someone in the future may be able to save their world. Because as I mentioned in my last video, no matter what world you may find, Elysia will always make the same choice for humanity. We have time for one last theory, so while we're on the subject of past and future, let me throw out one wild and almost baseless idea. If my interpretation of the Impact 3rd Easter eggs is correct, and Amphoreous is truly in the past, then that means some of these characters may have survived and exist in the current times, which the Astral Express travel through. So what if Phainon, much like Kevin, exists as someone else to them? I have two ways this could go. My first really wild guess would be that Phainon is Nanook, the Aeon of Destruction. This is based on the eerily similar markings of Golden Ichor that Phainon splashes across his body in the trailer. Plus, it is known that Aeons are not born, they ascend, and Nanook was the most recently ascended Aeon, so it's incredibly unlikely but not impossible. My other guess would be that Phainon is Elio, the leader of the Stellaron Hunters. My logic here is based on the assumption that Phainon does indeed gain some authority over Finality. The Stellaron Hunters follow the path of Finality, and Elio's ability to see and record the future may come from his connection with the Finality, and of course remembrance, on his home world. This theory makes more sense to me because of Elio's proclamation early on in the game that the Trailblazer will need allies when they one day come face to face with Nanook, and it just seems too early to bring a plotline like that into the spotlight. Honestly, I think both of my ideas are ridiculous, but it would be a fascinating twist to have some of the Chrysos heirs be known to us in other capacities. Stares at March 7th. But on that note, there is way too much to cover when it comes to Star Rail right now, so that's where we'll have to leave it for this video. So to sum it all up, I think Phainon is going to be a big deal beyond just Amphoreous, and I cannot wait to see what they do with Cyrene, because it will be perfect. The next video I'm very keen to make is a quick recap on what's going on with the Genius Society at the moment, because the Unknowable Domain simulated universe quests were very interesting, and of course the Herder reveal and her connections to Amphoreous are very intriguing, so there's some stuff I'd really love to talk about on that subject. Anyways, I'll just be glad when the first patch for Amphoreous finally drops, so that the speculation gremlins running rampant in my mind can rest for a moment. But given how much Hoyoverse loves to tease us, I can guarantee it will only be for a literal moment. So keep an eye out for more ridiculous theories and recaps in the future.